I'm Sal Amato, the program director of WBMX.com, sitting here with Frankie Hollywood Rodriguez.
Hi.
Armando's on his way in still. He's re-editing his video. He's auditioning for Survivor. So keep your fingers crossed for him. And the man who, to put WBMX together back, when did you actually get to WBMX? It's Lee Michaels, everyone.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I think it was around 80.
Cowboy George.
Yeah. Stop. Don't go
there. All right, so before you got to WBMX, where were you before BMX?
WGCI.
And how did you wind up at WGCI?
I was working at KKSS. Well, actually, we just changed it from KISS to Magic. Anyway, I came to Chicago in '79, late '79, from St. Louis. I was program director, operations manager for KMJM, Magic 108 in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
It was just kind of an urban, mainstream urban, and I came up to basically to be the assistant PD music director, but they gave me a crackhead title of music systems coordinator. Whatever that. I've never heard of that one again.
So you were the first for that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice,
I've been a lot of firsts, but that was one that never made sense to me.
You never see that anywhere else anywhere. Yeah.
Barry Mayo was the PD, and
at the station in St. Louis or in Chicago?
In Chicago, okay. WGCI.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there for a few months, and then I got an opportunity to interview for a job as a A&R guy for A&M Records.
Mm-hmm.
One of the co-owners came through, Herb Alpert. He was on a tour for the Rise.
The Rise.
Yeah. And for some reason, we just kind of hit it off. I did the interview in midday at GCI. And he invited me out to L.A. to interview for the job. They were going to start a new division, an urban division. They needed a black guy to be the A&R guy. So I went out for the interview, came back, and I didn't have a job. They fired me. But they knew I was going. They gave me the approval, because I asked Barry, and who's the GM? God, I can see him. His name will come to me. But anyway.
Oh, the guy with the messed up eye?
Yeah.
That's Kearney?
No, that Kearney.
Oh,
no.
Remember he talked like that, kind of?
No, but that was Kearney. He talked like that. But anyway, I went out there, didn't get the job. Well, actually, they didn't decide for several weeks later. But as it turns out, they decided not to do it. And in fact, they did a cutback and fired a bunch of people. Anyway, I ended up out of work.
Was that due to lack of sales back then?
Well,
they didn't have the internet to blame back then, though.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. It was just
some damn cassettes.
In-house stupidity.
The only iPod was like that.
Yeah, right. Exactly. This was pre-MTV days. But they. So I came back and just kind of sat around for a couple months and regrouped. And ended up coming to BMX as a morning show person.
Now, how did Barry Mayo wind up bringing you to GCI? How did you wind up at GCI? I mean, did he just call you, or did you hear through the grapevine?
I was hired by the GM to assist Barry Mayo because he was a green PD at the time. This was his second PD job. I think it was down in Little Rock before.
He wound up at WGCI.
Exactly.
At that time, it was like Studio 107.5, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what it was called. And I was brought in to kind of be the seasoning to help him mold his skills and make the station more formatted. Because he was... The clocks and the rotation and everything was kind of primitive. So I came in and put some systems in.
So when you got to GCI, you had a cumulative experience of other markets, obviously.
Yes.
And each market that you had, was there New York was involved? What station was?
Yep. I worked at 99X in New York, which was a top 40 station during those days, 75.
All right. So as you went around, disco at that time.
Yeah, I was in New York in 75, and the disco thing was in full swing. Yeah, I picked up a lot of different things in my travels. From L.A., I went to San Francisco. From San Francisco to L.A., back to St. Louis. So I bounced around to several different stations around the country in different regions. And each one of those experiences allowed me to pick up something from those regions.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of gathered all of that information and experiences and formats and different policies and procedures from different program directors and began to mold my own group of systems that I implemented once I became PD at WBMX. Was the first place that I put it all together.
So when it was 1981 or about 80 by the time you got to BMX,
Yeah,
right?
80.
Because when you were
morning personality.
at WGCI, when you were still at GCI, from what I remember, I know. You remember, Frankie? Kenny was doing remixes at GCI.
Right.
Kenny Jam and Jason was at GCI because DAI had fallen apart.
Yeah.
Disco DAI was gone, and then Kenny was doing remixes.
Right.
Briefly.
Single
at GCI.
remixes.
Yeah, just
we
songs.
Would remix a song.
Like Upside Down.
Right, exactly.
You know, that album, Diana's album was out. That was 80.
That was around 80.
Yeah, when
Right
Upside
after
Down was out.
DAI went down.
Yeah. Now, how did Kenny wind up at WGCI? I mean, because obviously we can see that the beginning of what you were once you got to BMX, how you started adding and putting more things together. But how did you wind up getting Kenny over at Jam and Jason over at WGCI?
Actually, I think that was through Barry. Barry, some kind of way, ran into him in a club or something to that effect.
It was because of Rocky Jones and Barry's friendship.
Exactly.
Kenny was part of Audio Talent Record Pool. Rocky took Kenny to meet Barry and said, maybe we ought to do a mix show or something like they were doing on DAI. And he said, well, I don't know if we're going to do a mix show, but how about some remixes of these songs that we want to play, these
that
clubbier type
right.
of songs.
Yes, I remember Rocky.
That's how it happened.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because he marched a bunch of us over there.
That's right.
And anyway, go on.
So from that, the remixes came out of GCI, and then a little time later, I was a morning show personality, and then I left for a few months, and I came back. I ended up being the PD around 81, mid-81 or so.
Now, was that after the Bodacious FM days?
Yes.
That was when it was FM 102.
Yeah.
Like 79, it was BMX.
I was a morning guy during the Bodacious days.
Okay.
Yeah. It was Famous and Ross. Yeah. Famous and Ross. Yeah. Brenda Ross.
Brenda Ross. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. It was the first time I'd done a team, male-female team thing, and it was a good experience.
I got to interject with something with that. There was a nightclub out here in Arlington Heights called Cinderella Rockefeller, and I remember they hired Famous and Ross. Now picture this: the suburbs of Chicago, all white club,
right,
hires Famous and Ross to host a show at Cinderella Rockefeller, and all the white girls, and I'm not getting on a racial thing, but predominantly 90% white. There was 4 or 5 top 40 radio stations in this town, but they hired, Famous and Ross to host this night. And I moved here from New York at that time, a little bit before then, and it was like, Famous and Ross. Oh yeah, that's all anyone listened to that was kind of hip and on the cutting edge. You know what I mean? Because there was no color barrier there. Nobody looked at it as a black radio station. It was the only station playing good music.
That's right. It was good music, and we were doing some lifestyle stuff that hadn't been implemented on urban radio at that time. We were talking about things in the newspapers and magazines and little feature stuff, and Brenda would kind of be like an entertainment reporter. She would pull stuff from newspapers and magazines, the tabloids, and so it was kind of different for what we were used to doing.
And that actually wound up setting the tone for WBMX because it crossed so many barriers through the years.
So you know what a lot of people didn't understand? When I took over as PD, within the first year or so, after I began to really examine the Arbitron ratings, and I saw that BMX was about 60% black and 40% other. And GCI, on the other hand, was in the 90 percentile of black listeners. So we had a general market appeal mix way early. So I said, you know what, this is kind of the natural curve of the station. I'm not going to force it to be something that it isn't. And I said, well, what's going to make it a bigger universe, or more universal to a lot more people? And I always had this desire to bring in mixes and to do some stuff like that, because in Charlotte, North Carolina, in '78, I got a couple of guys from clubs to bring in 10-inch reel-to-reels and put it on there, and which was and this was on an AM station, 1600 on the dial. So I was kind of cutting edge. And going, mixes on AM, get out of here.
How come that song doesn't stop?
Exactly.
A half-hour record.
And it was phenomenal. You know, people were going crazy. The clubs were talking about it, and people were, just, can you believe this? So I took that same concept. Now that was in '78. By '81, I did the same thing in Chicago. Now Chicago had already been introduced to it through DAI.
Right.
DAI went away. And I submit that DAI went away because they didn't understand how to sell it, how to position it, and it was popular, but it didn't explode. It didn't explode because it had a harness on it.
No, disco exploded too.
Exactly.
So I mean, I'll never forget hearing "This Is It" by Kenny Loggins on there. And I was ready to jump off a bridge back then. I was like, oh, God, there it is. It's the end of it.
It's over.
It's over. They're playing Kenny Loggins. This is it.
Yep.
I don't want to live anymore. Yes, I mean, they had morphed like right before your very ears at that time.
Well, see, they went the wrong direction. And when what we did at BMX was, well, first we kind of had a talent search kind of thing where we accepted tapes from just about anybody, including you. And, my objective was to find the right combination of mixed show jocks from different pockets of the metro area. And I said, the internal jocks and the management were saying, well, you got to get some more black mixed show jocks. I said, I don't care about that. I want the best guys I can find. It wasn't a color thing. It didn't matter to me. I was looking for something unique and different, in style. And that would represent the whole metro area of different lifestyles and approaches to the same music. So we ended up with 5 guys after, several months of trial and error and cutting and trying different styles. We ended up with the original Hot Mix 5. Which was Kenny Jam and Jason, Ralphie Rosario, Barley Jack Master Funk, Mickey Mixon Oliver, and Scott Smoking Seals.